All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of That Makes Sense. We're going to continue with the Depeche Mode vinyl box set series. This episode, we're going to talk about Songs of Faith and Devotion, the studio album After Violator, also considered a classic Depeche Mode album, and the last album with Alan Wilder. So, the thing is, that is the one box set I don't own. But that's okay. We still can talk about it. And I can tell you the reason why I don't own it is number one, I have the original US releases, which I'll show and talk about. But also, like right now, it's going for like $1,000. And I think that's just crazy for what it is. I'm not paying $1,000 for Songs of Faith and Devotion box set. Although I'd love to own it. The truth of the matter is, like when these box sets first came out, uh, I thought it was interesting, but I had a lot of these original records, whether it be a U.S. release or UK release or European release, and I really didn't want to plop down the money to get the box sets. But years later, when all the box sets were coming, well, let me back up one other thing. I had already been ordering when the vinyl albums, when they started reissuing the Depeche Mode vinyl albums with the thicker vinyl. I started collecting, was starting to pick up and order more of the 12-inch singles. I already had a lot of them, but there were still several of them that I was missing. So I started buying up a lot of the originals. Um, so and even back then, this is probably, 10, 15 years ago, even then the prices were starting to go up. Now the prices of these singles have gone, they're pretty expensive. So like when the box sets came out, it's like I already have a lot of them, and I really don't want to plop down the money. But what I found out was, wait a few more years later, and the prices really started skyrocketing. So I started snagging up the box sets. I think part of the reason why is because I didn't own a lot of the European versions of the releases, and it's kind of number one, I love the artwork. I love that they kept the material the same as the originals when released back in the day. But it's also nice to have those box sets, like all the singles right there. And I just, you get one, and it's like, oh yeah, I want to get another one. And honestly, I was lucky to find some of them used on the used market that still, they weren't cheap, but they weren't $1,000. I'll tell you that. So, I know like Violator, probably spent a couple $100, but um, and then Music for the Masses, I spent some, but I bought both of those used. But even used to find Songs of Faith and Devotion is going to run you close to $1,000. So I just said no on Songs of Faith and Devotion and just got the rest of the other ones. But I wanted to talk about it, and we'll go over what was released in those box sets and some of the differences. They're not. The U.S. versions had more bang for your buck as usual, but also I'll talk about what's not on them that was released. A couple songs, and I'll talk about a couple personal Depeche Mode stories. So. The first one is I Feel You. There's two records. The record number one is the Throb Mix, which is like the 12-inch or extended version of I Feel You. It also includes the 7-inch single version, which is the same as what's on the album Songs of Faith and Devotion. It also contains the track I Feel You Babylon Mix, which is like a dance remix of I Feel You, and then One Caress. So at this point in the US, I Feel You was released on CD as as two singles. So, like I said, a lot of times in the Europe, there would be two releases of a single for Depeche Mode, whether it be two vinyl records or 2 CDs. But then I think the U.S. record companies started to get smart and say, "Oh yeah, we could release 2 and get twice the money." So that's what they did with "I Feel You," and I still have the original CD singles, but on and the U.S. and UK releases, at least from the box set and what the CD singles are in the US, contain the same track listing. So, record number 2 on the "I Feel You" on the Songs of Faith and Devotion box set is the second "I Feel You" contains the "Life's Too Short" mix, the "Swamp" mix, the "Renegade Sound Wave Afghan Surgery" mix, and then "I Feel You" Helmet at the Helm mix. So I'm trying to remember. I think the "Life's Too Short" mix and the "Swamp" mix are kind of more experimental, atmospheric mixes that I think Brian Eno did. And if you went to see Songs of Depeche Mode live in 1993, they opened the tour with that instrumental version, and then went into the song "Higher Love," which I'll talk about here in a second, but amazing intro. So, and then "One Caress" is the B-side of "I Feel You," which is also an album track on Songs of Faith and Devotion. I think as a kid, I remember when Songs of Faith and Devotion "I Feel You" came out. I was really excited because by this time I was a Depeche Mode fan. I really started buying a lot of their stuff when, after Violator came out, you had this, 91 and 92 time period where the CD singles box sets were coming out. And I was learning about all the CD singles and remixes. So this was the day before the internet, and then I remember I was at the music store. I probably went to the music store once a week, and I found the CD single for "I Feel You." I was like, awesome! Depeche Mode has a new CD single, and then you look on the back, and there's Dave Gahan with this beard. It's like, whoa, and then you listen to that song, and it's just so rocky. It's like the electronic blues, which was a kind of like definitely a heavier sort of sound for Depeche Mode. "Never Let Me Down Again" from "Music for the Masses" was kind of rocky, but this took it to a whole nother level. And keep in mind that by 1993, grunge music was out, Nirvana was out, so music was really taking a different turn from when Violator came out. And if you think Violator came out like in 1990, and at that time it's like Vanilla Ice and MC Hammer, and then by 92, boom, you got Nirvana, and then 93 Songs of Faith and Devotion. So they wanted to change their sound, and I think the reason why they chose "One Caress" as a B-side was to show they also have this classical sound. It has an orchestral live strings to it. So a very different sort of direction when you got that single that you heard Depeche Mode go to. So here is the cover for the "I Feel You," the US version. And I believe you see the 4 symbols here, and then you see numbers. So there's 1659, 9562, 23761, and 8761. And I believe those are all the band members' birth dates. So I'd have to, but like it says 1959, 1962, 61, and 61. So I don't know if they put the month. I'd have to check on the month and the date if they put in the European format or US format. But I believe those are the band's birth dates. And then here is the back of the box of "I Feel You." And the US version It really came with you got your bang for your buck there. It came with I Feel You Helmet, the Helm mix, I Feel You Afghan Surgery mix, I Feel You Throb mix, I Feel You Babylon mix, I Feel You Life's Too Short mix. So instead of having to buy two CD singles, you could just buy this and get all the remixes. The only difference is you don't get the one caress, but you know it ended up being on the album anyway. So just I remember seeing that picture of Dave. You know, it's looking like a badass, but I mean, my God, you go from like clean cut Violator Dave to this. I mean, quite a transition. So that is I Feel You. The second single from Songs of Faith and Devotion is Walking in My Shoes. Again, it was released in Europe and in the box set with 2 records. In the U.S., it was just a one record release. Same with the CD single. I have the CD single. It was just a 1 CD release in the U.S. But you got like everything. But in the box set, you have Walk in My Shoes, Grungy Gonads mix. You have Walk in My Shoes 7-inch mix, which is single version, which is good. They have a single version. The My Joy, which is a B-side. The only, I guess, original B-side song from Songs of Faith and Devotion. That has a 7-inch mix. And then My Joy, the slow slide mix, which is an extended version of My Joy. So on the second record of Walk in My Shoes, it had the extended 12-inch mix, the Walking in My Shoes random carpet mix, which is, I think, an awesome remix by William Orbit. It has a Walk in My Shoes Anan Dan Middick mix. Sorry, I can't pronounce that very well. And then Walk in My Shoes ambient whale mix. So it's got the sounds of whales in it. So those are the 2 records in the box set for Walk in My Shoes. Here is the release on the U.S. side. This is actually a promotional version, but I think the track listing is the same on the promotional and non-promotional record. In the US, here's what it looks like. I'll pull the record out, but it's, you know, nothing special. It's just how all the reprise records for Depeche Mode look like back in the day. But the track listing is extended 12-inch mix, the random carpet mix, Walking in My Shoes, Walking in My Shoes Grungy Gonads mix, Walking in My Shoes Anandamitic remix, and then Walking in My Shoes ambient whale mix. It does contain the slow slide remix of My Joy, but it does not contain the 7-inch version of My Joy, which is on the US CD single. The one thing that I wish I would have is there is an unreleased remix of Walking My Shoes done by William Orbit back in the day. It was finally released officially in 2004 when Depeche Mode released a thing of remixes, and I think it was like on a bonus CD or something. But it's really a shame that was not released like in this box set, because I think that's the best remix of Walk in My Shoes. It's a very similar mix to the random carpet mix that William Orbit did originally, but I think the random carpet mix is a little dark. And all he just added some like synths on top of it that made the song a little bit lighter. But man, it's a really cool remix. I know it is out on vinyl in that remix collection, but that's pretty rare to find. But like I think anything that William Orbit touches is freaking amazing. He produced Madonna's Ray of Light album. He's got several albums on his own, several of which are what's called Strange Cargo, Volume 1, 2, and 3, and Pieces in a Modern Style. It's what William Orbit made of electronic versions of classical songs, which is a great listen to if you have an opportunity. And William Orbit also did one of the best remixes, I think, from Erasure, is Supernature, from a B-side from Wild, which is a remake of an old disco song from Cerrone. So, I just wish they would have put that William Orbit remix. I don't even know the name of the remix, but he did 2 remixes of Walking My Shoes. So I wish that would have come out. So the third single from Songs of Faith and Devotion is Condemnation. And they have a mix called the Paris mix. It's only 3 minutes and 21 seconds. I would call that basically a re-released reversion of the single. It's a lot like the album version, but they add like a little drum beat to it. So the next song on the Condemnation record that's in the box set, and once again, Condemnation has 2 records in the box set, the vinyl box set. The next song is Death's Door Jazz Mix. Now, what I think is interesting about Death's Door, it actually, Depeche Mode made this for a soundtrack called Until the End of the World, I believe, that came out in I believe 1991 or 92. And the 7-inch version of Death's Door, I think it's only available on that soundtrack. And I remember hearing that song when it first came out. Keep in mind that this is like the first new Depeche Mode song post Violator. And you listen to Personal Jesus, World in My Eyes, Policy of Truth, and Enjoy the Silence. And then you hear Death's Door. Do, 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 do. A very kind of nothing very special about that song. It's Martin singing it, kind of a slow song. I mean, it's not a bad song, but it's such a contrast from Violator. You hear there's a new Depeche Mode song out. Oh my God, it's called Death's Door. And then you listen to it and it's like, oh. And you're kind of a little disappointed, I guess. But I grew to like that song. The jazz mix is basically extended version of that 7-inch version or version that's on that soundtrack. But I like it. They kind of go into kind of a weird, I guess, Depeche Mode-esque sort of jazz style because it's called the jazz mix. The next 3 songs on the Condemnation record from the box set is there's 3 remixes of Rush from an album track on Songs of Faith and Devotion. One is the Spiritual Guidance mix. One is the Emol Nitrate mix, instrumental. And then there is a Wild Planet mix, vocal. The one thing I wanted to point out is, and I think Front 242 did the remix for Spiritual Guidance mix. And then I'll talk about, I'll just go ahead and say it. In 94 when Depeche Mode toured, they did 2 tours for Songs of Devotion. They did, in 93, they did what's called the Devotional Tour, where they toured, I think, US and Europe. And then they came back in the summer of 94, did the Exotic Tour, and they came back to the US. And I saw them on both those tours, and I'll talk about that story here. But the Exotic Tour, that second tour that they did in 94, it opened up with that amyl nitrate mix. So if you watch the I don't know. Like, I don't know if there's really any good copies of that Exotic tour. If you watch that devotional live video, because they officially released a video and Songs of Faith and Devotion live, that was recorded during the devotional tour. But there's some interesting changes that they made on the Exotic tour, especially with opening up with the ML Nitrate mix of Rush. So I think it's a really like a fast. They rocked it up, made it faster. I wish there was vocals in this, but it's just an instrumental. It would have been cool if they had the vocals. So then, so Depeche Mode was busy touring, and so what they did was just release a bunch of live songs as well. So for Condemnation, the second record in the box set, they released Condemnation Live, Personal Jesus Live, Enjoy the Silence Live, and Halo Live. And on the US CD single, I know that those songs are on there. So let me show you what the US record looks like. And I have the US CD single, I have the cassette single, and the vinyl record. Here's what Condemnation looks like. You know, they're busy touring, so they use photos from a live show. And then the back, kind of like they did on that back of World in My Eyes. One of the World in My Eyes records has a bunch of live views. And they released this probably right around the time when they released Songs of Faith and Devotion Live, which I'm disappointed with, but I'll talk about that. This is a promotional copy, but I think the track listing of regular records is the same as well. But it's got Condemnation Live, Enjoy the Silence Live, Halo Live, Death's Door Jazz Mix, Rush Spiritual Guidance Mix, Rush Nitrate Mix, Rush Wild Planet Mix, Condemnation Paris Mix. So I think it does not contain Personal Jesus. And I don't believe Personal Jesus Live was released with Condemnation in the US. So that's... Now, the one thing I do want to say is the Rush Wild Planet mix was not released in the US on the CD single. I remember buying it on cassette tape because the cassette tape did contain the Rush Wild Planet mix. So that's why I ended up buying the cassette tape back in the day. It wasn't years later that I bought Rush or Condemnation / Rush on vinyl. So yeah, so that's it for Rush. So the final single in the Songs of Faith and Devotion box set is In Your Room. So I'll go over the track listings with that. In Your Room Zephyr Mix, In Your Room Apex Mix, In Your Room Jeep Rock Mix, and then remix of Higher Love, the Adrenaline Mix, and then In Your Room Extended Zephyr Mix. The Zephyr remix is really cool. It was remixed by Butch Vig of Garbage, and I even remember meeting Butch Vig after a Garbage concert one time and asking him specifically about this remix. I was like, what's it feel to have remix for Depeche Mode? And it's like, it was pretty cool. And by this point, Garbage wasn't out yet. Though he produced Nevermind by Nirvana, so he was a well-known producer at the time. But really, he really stripped In Your Room down, made it a little bit slower at the beginning, but still a very cool mix. And matter of fact, Depeche Mode liked it so much, most of the time when they play In Your Room, they'll live in concert, they'll play that Zephyr mix. I think on the devotional tour, they just played the regular version, That Zephyr mix probably wasn't released at the beginning of that tour, so that probably came out, later on. I think that came out in '94. So no, it came out in '93. But yeah, and then there's the remix of Higher Love, which is kind of a dance mix of Higher Love, which is the last track on Songs of Faith and Devotion. And then the second record from In Your Room, that is all live tracks. It has In Your Room live, Policy of Truth live, World in My Eyes live, Fly on the Windscreen live, Never Let Me Down Again live, and Death's Door live. I really wish I had this record. I do have the European CD release of In Your Room because, and it does not have 6 tracks. I think there's only 4 tracks on the European release. But I really wanted that version of World in My Eyes that they did live on the Devotional tour. It's basically taken from John Marsh's remix that was finally released in the Violator box set. So there's my cat, he wants some attention. But also Fly on the Windscreen, that live version I think is freaking awesome because they really rocked it, made it sound modern. They put some modern kind of like hip hop or drum beats to it, and that's a great live version. I know I think when Alan Wilder auctioned off all his music gear, I think there was like DAT tapes or tapes of that mix of Fly on the Windscreen. I know that for sure because if you go on YouTube, you can hear that track the way it is with no vocals. And I mean, they really jazzed that thing up. I mean, they really, I should say they beefed it up because it's just a more modern take. I love that version. And then Never Let Me Down Again live. I would assume that is like from the Devotional tour. So that's probably that version. I have not heard that one because I don't have the record. But Death's Door live, when they played that live, it was like a scaled down piano version of it. And if you watch the Devotional tour video, the ending credits have that live mix. So that's pretty cool too. I don't have that song on vinyl. But here's what I wanted to talk about. I'll show the US version of In Your Room. Unfortunately, I don't have a cover of it. But I think it's the same cover as as one of the European records, UK releases. But on the US version, you have the In Your Room Extended Zephyr mix. That's that mix from Butch Vig. In Your Room Apex mix. In Your Room, the Jeep Rock mix. And then Higher Love Adrenaline mix. So just a 4-track single in the US. But still pretty cool. So what the story that I wanted to say, and here is the vinyl record, the reissue of Songs of Faith and Devotion. What's special about this album to me is I remember when it came out. By that time, I was starting to buy Depeche Mode, and a guy that I knew who was a DJ, his name's Mike Young, so thanks. Hey Mike, if you're watching. He gave me a huge Songs of Faith and Devotion poster that fit just huge, almost the entire side of my bedroom wall. Because back then, it wasn't unusual for record companies to give out these huge promotional posters and stuff to music stores and free records to nightclubs and stuff if you were on a specific list. But I want to tell you I have two stories from Songs of Faith and Devotion Live. But before I tell you those stories, I want to address why I think the Songs of Faith and Devotion box set is $1,000 and why, compared to some of the other releases, why so many people snag that box set up. By 1993, the record stores were really, at least the chain music stores, were really phasing out the vinyl records. I mean, this cassette tape and CDs mainly. I mean, CDs was the big format that everyone was buying. You didn't have the skips, or at least the needle sounds from vinyl on CD. It was sold as a cleaner sound. And at that time, most people were not buying vinyl records at that point. It was a dying thing. And the funny thing was, I didn't start collecting vinyl records until probably 1996 or 97. By that time, vinyl was dead, and people were just giving away records. A lot of my records, I shouldn't say a lot, but early on, a lot of records I got for free or very low cost because people were just trying to get rid of it. At that point, MP3s hadn't come out yet. It was just all CDs and cassette tapes. But anyways, I wanted to talk about the first time I saw Depeche Mode. It was my first concert show ever. It was in Cleveland, Ohio. I was probably 16. My cousin was nice enough, an older cousin was nice enough to go with me. My mom didn't want me to travel up there by myself, which is understandable. So my cousin went. Now, I had bought the tickets. I bought the tickets the day of. And back then, you actually had to go to the music store where they had Ticketmaster and buy the tickets there. I bought it the day of. So instead of driving up there, the local radio station, CD 101 in Columbus, is an alternative music station. They had a bus that took you up to the concert. And so basically we got to ride on a bus with the radio station and go to the concert in Cleveland. And a couple lucky people could go backstage and meet the band. They had a drawing. Fortunately, I didn't get to go see the band. I was sad. But I was still excited to see them live. It was my first show. And I remember with my tickets that I bought the day of, that when they started selling the tickets, I was so high up in these amphitheater or the basketball arena seats, there was nobody sitting behind us. So when we saw Depeche Mode, they looked like little ants. But one of the coolest things, though, was the opening of that show. It started with an instrumental version of I Feel You. And if you watch the devotional video, you can see it, but it's still, seeing it live was just so epic, where basically they were standing behind curtains, and there was lights projecting on the band members, which were projecting their shadows on these huge curtains. So the band looked larger than life, and they opened up with the song Higher Love. And then, like, once when Dave starts singing, they drop the curtains and exposes the band. And it was just like, whoa. I mean, how cool is that? It was just such an epic moment. And I loved the concert. I had a great time. I remember riding back. I was talking to some guy sitting next to me. He was one of the lucky guys to go back with his girlfriend and meet the band. And one of the things they told me, I wish I would have known this, is they were just letting everyone back there. Anybody that wanted to go back with the radio station, you could have gone back. I didn't even, I don't know, that was my first concert. I didn't even try. But his wife and him, they each got autographs of, at that time, the band was Dave, Andrew Fletcher, and Martin Gore, and Alan Wilder. So he really liked talking to me, this guy in the bus. And what he did, I told him I didn't get to go backstage. He gave me an autographed copy of the sleeve of Songs of Faith and Devotion, which today I still treasure. So I'll show you. The thing is, the band members' names, I don't know. I can try to guess who signed what, and maybe I'm sure somebody knows, but some of it's kind of like scribbles. But I think this might be Alan's autograph right there. And then this, I think this is Martin's autograph. It's just like a scribble. It's very difficult to see what it is even. But I think there's a G in there. Although actually this might be Alan. I bet this is Alan's autograph because it's on the view of just Alan playing drums. So I think that first one is probably Dave's. Yeah, because Dave's right there. I think that's Dave's. And then, well, shit, I don't know. This one, there's another picture right here. So some of the Depeche Mode signature experts, please tell me in the comments whose autograph is whose. But I have all four of their autographs, which I think is really cool. Now I have a completely different story. I was able to see them in Columbus in '94 with the girl I was dating at the time. And it's the only time I think they've come to Columbus. But basically, I knew two guys that won front row tickets to the show. It was at Polaris Amphitheater. It was an outdoor amphitheater at the time, no longer here. But I was walking with my girlfriend before the concert, and one of the guys that I know that won front row, he sees me. It's like, hey Brad, come on over here. And so like I get up there, and the security guard stops us. And the guy that I know that's front row, he's like, oh no, it's all right. He's with me. So the security guard let us come up. So we got to see that concert from the Devotional '94 tour, or the Exotic tour. I'm sorry, the Exotic tour. Got to see that concert live front row. I think after that, I now always carry earplugs in live shows because it was so loud. It was amazing, but I remember it was my ears were ringing afterwards. But they definitely played like some of the songs. They played A Question of Time, which they made like a rockier version of it. I can't remember if they had remade Everything Counts. They did like a rockier version of that, which I think they played on this Safari tour. But yeah, I have fond memories of that. The one thing I do remember though is Andrew Fletcher was not on that tour, and I've heard that like Andrew had like a nervous breakdown or just was stressed. And I can imagine from all that touring, years of touring, especially 2 world tours with Songs of Faith and Devotion. I think it was Daryl Bamonte from The Cure. There was a keyboardist from The Cure playing with them. I remember like everybody got like free roses or something. I threw a rose up to Daryl Bamonte and caught my rose. But I also remember Dave. I could see, since I was front row, I could see him on stage singing, and then he'd go off to the side. And what was over there, there was a bottle of Jack Daniel's whiskey. I remember Dave like drinking out of the bottle of the whiskey. And I remember Alan looking at Dave just like, just disappointed and just frustrated. I could see that frustration front row. And that was kind of, I'm sure everyone knows Dave's downward spiral, in '95 and with the heroin and stuff. So when Alan said he was leaving the band, especially I think by that time, I can't remember, but if Dave had tried to commit suicide or Dave had died from the heroin overdose at that point or not, but all that was going on around 95, 96. So when Alan announced that he was leaving the band, it did not surprise me. And I thought with Dave's heroin issues, I thought that was the end of the band. I thought that Depeche Mode was done. Fortunately, that didn't happen. And we can talk about that next with Ultra. But yeah, just an interesting time. I'm really happy I got to see them. I'm really happy I got to see Alan Wilder too, at least once before I left. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to say about that album, but those are my memories. Oh, one other thing. There is something, the radio station that bussed us up for the Cleveland show for the devotional tour, they released a promotional Depeche Mode CD that they just gave to all the concert goers in Columbus in '94 from that Safari tour. And I still have that CD. It's actually a really rare Depeche Mode thing to have. The CD track listing contained like previously released songs from a couple songs from Violator and songs of faith and devotion. Nothing special about the track listing, but there's probably like 6 or 7 songs on it. But I still have that CD somewhere. I have to go down into my crawl space and find it. But anyways, that's Songs of Faith and Devotion. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.